Hey there, this is Anne Marie, Anti-HR, and this is Little Makeup Chronicle. I'm getting ready to meet my darling, beloved cousin for brunch, and I'm gonna kill two birds with one stone and talk a little bit to you guys about my thoughts about this whole UnitedHealthcare thing with the CEO and all the lessons to be learned. There's so much to this thing, and I think there's so much that we don't already yet know. Just adjusting my camera a little bit. And I'm wearing my Minding My Black Woman Business t-shirt while I get this together. This t-shirt is available for sale on my website. You can get the Minding My Black Woman t-shirt, or you can get the Minding My Black Business. You can get the Minding My Black Woman Business t-shirt, or you can get the Minding My Black Business t-shirt. If you're a guy, you might like that one better. And before I go further, because when you're an entrepreneur, you have to always plug your business, especially when you're a Black entrepreneur. It's not easy out here in these streets. Also, we're doing a holiday sale right now. 15% off all my anti-HR merch in my anti-HR online store, and 15% off, 20% sale is over, 15% off of my master courses. And there's also a special bundle deal if you're seeking to buy both of my master courses together. So you can visit my website, and you can also visit my anti-HR online store. Both are linked in the description of this video. Okay. So I've been thinking a lot about this whole UnitedHealthcare thing, and I have not spoken up about it yet on purpose. Everyone has been making their videos and saying their piece about it, and I'm going to finally say a little things about it. But I'm going to say it in the context of what I think is a bigger issue than this guy getting shot in broad daylight in New York, one of the most places in the country with the most cameras, most surveillance of its citizens, and yet this man is still at large and they can't find him. And I mean, what a statement about whiteness that is, right? And some of them even had the audacity to describe him as light-skinned instead of saying that he was white. But that's white supremacy in the press for you, right? When white people do bad things, there's such a mad rush to distance them from whiteness that they don't even want to say this man is what he obviously is, which is a white man, right? And, folks may debate the rightness or the wrongness of his actions. I'm not going to get into that. But I'm going to say it is a reflection. People's response to this murder in broad daylight is a reflection on how many people are feeling about the oligarchs in this country and the health or lack of health care situation in this country, and how these health insurance companies are literally terrorizing us as citizens, tax-paying citizens, and non-tax-paying citizens, because healthcare, honestly, in my opinion, should not be a profit center. And in most other civilized places, even places some of y'all might consider uncivilized, it's not. But in America, everything is a profit center, because we have allowed these oligarchs to take over our country and to take over our lives. And if we would wake up, and when I say we, I mean all Americans would wake up to what this is, what just happened in November in the election, because somebody basically bought the election. One, entities influenced the election, but a single entity financed and paid for someone to be reelected because they expect them to do their bidding. And what does that mean for those of us who don't have the money to buy an election? But so many Americans are so filled with hate, so filled with racism, so filled with a desire to maintain white supremacy that they can't even see how much white supremacy is actually killing them as well. And our health care system is a perfect example of that, as well as our educational system, right? There is no question that before the civil rights movement, America was moving towards universal health care as well as universally paid college, right? But once they realized that if they gave themselves universal health care and they gave themselves universally paid university education, that means Black people would have to get it too. That's when they decided not to do any of these things. These are documented facts. Google is free, okay? And there are books and papers that have been written about this reality, right? And so white people have literally shown that they are willing to cut off their own noses, literally, to spite their own faces if it means that black people won't get opportunity, right? And so they are willing to literally blow up their entire democracy as they showed this last election. They'd rather put an authoritarian and an oligarch in charge of running this country than to see black people and or brown people. And I know some of y'all don't like me to mention brown people, but brown people are part of this. They're part of helping the system as it is, and they're part of who they're trying to keep out of the system. Whether they realize it or not, they don't want y'all here any more than they want black people. They can't kick black Americans out, but they're going to do their damnedest kick everybody else out if they can, right? I don't know how successful they're going to be, because a lot of really wealthy people will lose a lot of money if they actually kick everybody out that they're claiming they're going to kick out. But that's a different discussion. One moment, I forgot my makeup brushes. I have to go get them. Can't get very far in this exercise without makeup brushes. But what I find interesting about this is not only, the public's response to the shooting in New York is not actually that surprising, right? But what I find interesting is the disconnect that so many people have between the problem with health insurance, which everybody agrees is a problem, and its connection to white supremacy and racism, right? And that if poor and middle-class white people could understand that when black people, especially black Americans in America, benefit, everybody benefits. When black people win, everybody wins. When we lose, poor and middle-class white people lose too. They just don't see it. They don't want to see it because they're too busy wanting to make sure that people don't get things that they think they're getting that is unearned. And I want to talk a minute also about DEI, and I mentioned DEI in my last video. And for all the people who are coming in my comments, pretend they don't know what DEI is or don't know what DEI is, Google is free. If you don't know what DEI is at this point in 2024, I suggest you go find that out. But what I'm not going to do is explain it to you, because that's just plain old intellectual laziness, in my opinion. Okay? For those who are, castigating DEI, have been coming for DEI, and really believe, people are being given opportunities and given jobs and giving things that they don't, quote, deserve, unquote. And it never occurs to them that the only reason they have the opportunities and things that they have is because they're white. It's not because you're special. It's not because you're smart. It's because the system is awarding you for being white, right? And that you get to stand in your mediocrity and question other people's right to be in the room, always assuming no one ever questions yours. So you're always assuming you belong there, but nobody else belongs there. And it never occurs to you that the only reason you're there is because you're white. But that's the case. I don't, who's going to tell on me? That's the case. When you see a black person sitting around that table, you can trust and believe they had to work their butts off and go through unimaginable things that you could not even fathom in your brain in order to be there. Many of them have had to sell their literal souls to be in that room, right? While others get to be mediocre as hell and be in that room. And then believe that the person that had to work the hardest to be in the room is only there because they're black. If that is not the biggest gaslighting job ever done, I don't know what is. But the gaslighting is not on black people, it's on white people, because they have been convinced by this system that they are the only ones that deserve to be in the room, when in fact they don't. They probably deserve it the least because they've had to work for it the least. But that's how the system works. And in order for the system to maintain itself, it has to keep them convinced. Because how do you finally come to grips with the fact? What would that do to your brain? You see how 8 years of a black man being in the White House blew up a majority of their brains. Their brains literally exploded at the thought that black people are in the White House. Everything that we're experiencing now is in direct response to that, right? Make no mistake. Barack Obama's presidency is the reason that a black woman and a white woman can't get elected, right? They will not allow anybody else in that isn't a white male for the foreseeable future, because with the help of white men and white women, who are still a majority in this country, and the help of Latinos who are white proximity seeking and other ethnic minorities who are not black but are immigrants, that is how they're holding on to power. The division is how they hold on to power, right? And they have convinced people that they are there because they deserve it, but that nobody else does, right? And the same mindset applies to access to healthcare. Folks just aren't making the connection. But in the case of access to healthcare, you have to be rich, is the attitude. If you don't have the money, then it's okay if you die. So you will pay, and that everything is for profit, including your healthcare. So these companies will take your money, invest it, become richer, right? But then when you actually need them to do the thing that you paid that money for, they get to deny your claim ad infinitum, right? Forever. Infinity, right? And that's literally the way that the whole system is designed to work. And so you think that when you get sick, well, now people kind of know it. And the question always for me is, why do we allow this to continue? And I know why. Because people are so invested in this white supremacy system that they can't see the forest for the trees and they can't let it go, right? They're angry about it. They know it's not right. But in order to have universal health care, it means everybody would have to have it. And we can't have those blacks having that. We can't have those, illegal immigrants getting health care. And I'm like, why? Everybody talks about illegal immigrants and all these different, the boogeymen right now are the trans people and the illegal immigrants. They're the ones that they talk about, giving trans people surgeries in prison and all these different things. And my question is, how does that cause any problems for your life? What does that take away from you? Why do you think someone having rights is an affront to you? How is that hurting you in any way? Because I had to ask myself these questions, and I had to come to realize, what am I upset about? Rights are not pie. Civil rights is not pie. You don't have to divide it up and cut it up. When somebody has rights, it's not taking anything away from you. And too many of us, want to hide behind Jesus. We want to hide behind talking about values, quote, values, unquote. We want to hide around anything to justify being hateful and hating other human beings and thinking that they shouldn't have anything, right? And so it's interesting to me, because I realize that if all these people that they are demonizing actually left the country, the United States economy would probably collapse. Not even probably, it would. If they actually deported all the people they're saying they're going to deport, if they did all the things they're saying they're going to do, your price of eggs wouldn't go down, it would probably triple, right? The price of your shrimp, your steaks, your oxtails, your vegetables, your strawberries, your broccoli, your apples, all of those things would quadruple unless you or your kids want to go pick strawberries in the hot sun, pick apples and oranges in the hot sun. These, quote, illegals that you all hate so much, so many of you, including people that look like me in my comments, they're the ones doing this work. So unless you want to be the one doing it, which I'm pretty sure the wealthy wouldn't mind putting you back on the field, they're the ones doing it for way less pay than you would ever be willing to accept, right? And you're sitting here demonizing these people, hating these people who aren't doing anything to you, taking anything from you. They work, they pay taxes, they don't benefit from the taxes that they pay. They can't get public assistance, they can't get tax refunds, they can't get any of those things, right? They don't get the benefit of the taxes that they pay as illegal immigrants. They might if they're resident. They will if they're legal immigrants. But if they're illegal immigrants, they're working. They're paying taxes are coming out of the things that they pay. That these big corporations are employing a lot of them in their factories and so on, and nobody's talking about that. And all the workplace rights violations that happen in those factories. that nobody talks about because nobody cares what happens to them. But when we need a boogeyman and somebody to demonize, the politicians are always happy to trot them out, as they did in the last election, and make it sound like they're taking something away from you so that you'll vote the way that they want you to. And they have us on a string dancing, just dancing, the majority of us, not me, but a majority of Americans, buying into this foolishness. And then now this man gets shot, and everybody, it resonates why everyone is taking the position. Not everyone, but the majority of people on social media and elsewhere. There's not a lot of empathy and sympathy for this man's untimely passing, right? And the reason is that people are so angry at the health insurance industry, and rightly so, that they can't separate the human being from the industry that he led and made $10.5 million a year working for. And I totally understand that. I'm not saying it's right, but in the words of Chris Rock, I'm not saying it's right, but I understand, right? But I don't understand why we can't translate that and see the connections between this situation and our overarching society. And the reality that a lot of these things that we should have, we don't have, is because of white supremacy. It's because of the hate embedded, the anti-Black hate embedded in the system, that they would rather not have universal health care. They would rather not have free education for their children. They would rather not have these things if it means that somebody that looks like me will get it too. And they'll tell you all other kinds of stories and about, why they're anti-DEI. It's because they do not want to see Black people get any kinds of opportunities. It has nothing to do with unearned anything. It's the idea that there should be programs and anything to allow Black people to have opportunities in this society. And they don't mind ripping the whole thing down and replacing it with a fascist, authoritarian regime if it means that they get to be at the top of the rubble. And I think people need to understand that. Black people need to understand that, right? And there are, we need to not separate this UnitedHealthcare thing from the overarching problem, because it's fruit of the whole same tree. But people don't want to see the connection, right? So people can see the wrongness of what the health care industry does and how it kills people. And I'm not being funny. It literally kills people because it denies people's health claims at times when they desperately need it, after they have paid and paid and paid. And they get sick. And every one of us is going to get sick at some point, right? And pay. And in no other country is this the case. And I think the average American would be willing to pay more taxes if they could have universal health care. But they would not be given the opportunity because the health insurance companies, they've been fighting to get rid of the little bit of health care you have now, your Obamacare, your Affordable Health Care Act, which is the same thing, by the way, for those of you who are dumb enough to not to this day realize that Obamacare and ACA are the same thing. And yes, I say dumb because at this point, it's intentional ignorance and stupidity to not make that connection and not know that. If you are so racist that you can't make the connection between two of those things, you probably don't belong here watching this video. So the little bit of health care you did get under President Obama, they have been fighting ever since to take away from you, and could very well take it away from you this year and replace it with nothing. Okay? It should be replaced with a universal health care plan where you don't pay anything and you pay higher taxes. They're getting ready to give the rich people another tax cut while they seek to cut your Social Security that you have paid into. And they don't plan to give you that money back either, because they've been borrowing against it for years and years and years. It's in the hole. They can't possibly they could put the money back and stop giving all that money to the military, but they're not going to. But they want to take the benefit away from people like me who have been paying into it since I started working when I was 15 or 16 years old, right? And none of us are making the connection between this hyper-capitalism in the United States, the way they pit groups of people against each other to keep everybody divided and angry while they pick your pockets and take advantage of you. And I wish to God that we would all wake up, especially white folk. But they are so invested in their supremacy that they can't see the forest for the trees. And they won't see it till the whole thing is burnt to the ground for everybody. So in the meantime, the Black community needs to get together, start supporting each other, creating businesses together, creating cooperatives together, supporting each other. That is the only thing that I think will save us. Going back to literally what we were doing in the 40s and the 50s before this wonderful integration came along. Because they're going to let the whole thing burn down, right? And them knocking off one health insurance executive doesn't change that, right? I always tell people the French Revolution happened for a reason. Go read about the French Revolution, right? And we're in very similar circumstances right now. Instead of a monarchy, it's oligarchy that is running this country. And a lot of people have had it up to here, right? But I don't think enough people have had it up to here. And I don't think enough people have made the connection between how they're all being taken advantage of and tricked and played with and bamboozled and led astray, in the words of my good brother, Malcolm X. While other people, a small group of people, get to make more and more and have more and more and more while they try to take more and more and more from everybody else. And if we could just wake up and demand something different, things would be different. But to do that, you have to let go of your white supremacy leanings. You have to be willing for everybody to get the same thing. And Americans are very obsessed with the idea of keeping anyone that's not them from having things, including Black Americans. Black people ain't that much different. We have been taught to think the same way. So we want equality for us, but we're very concerned about whether gay people have it. What many of us, we wrap ourselves in Jesus and we say it's because of Jesus. Jesus ain't got nothing to do with hate. If you hate any group of people, Jesus don't have nothing to do with that. And some of y'all gonna come in the comments, I said what I said. Don't put him in the middle of this. You believe that because you are filled with hate. That's why. Because if you want freedom and equality for yourself, then you have to want it for other people. And it is always the smallest people that they demonize first. If you studied Nazi Germany, you would understand this. Trans people are 0.000% of the population. Why are we all obsessed with them? Because they want you to be. Immigrant and legal immigrants and illegal immigrants, because he's not really making much differentiation between them. Illegal immigrants serve the United States economy in ways that I don't think the average American even understands. And they're an easy target. They're easy to demonize. They're easy to go after. And this is not unique to America. Anywhere you go in the world, in any major developed country, whether it's France, Germany, UK, European Union as an entity, they're demonizing illegal immigrants who are primarily Black and brown people. And whose countries they have all had a hand in destroying, making it necessary for these people to have to migrate elsewhere. And then they don't want them to come. So they have contributed to making these countries inhabitable, right? And then when people seek to migrate for a better life for themselves and their children, they demonize them and they don't want them to come, right? Because I can promise you right now, if you're a white woman or white man from Australia or Scotland or Ireland or wherever, you can come to America and you're not going to have a hard time. You can actually sneak in across the border and nobody's even going to care or pay much attention to you. Ukrainians are coming across the border too, quiet as a cat. Nobody talks about them either. But that's a conversation for another day because they're white. But we have been programmed, including Black people in America, to demonize and otherize immigrants, especially those we believe to be illegal, right? And what I'm saying to you is all collectively, we're being played. We're being played. And the next election, it'll be another boogeyman or the one that works. It depends on what the mood of the country is. They'll always find somebody for you to hate. They'll always find somebody that they tell you is taking things away from you so they can keep actually taking things away from you, right? So I really, really hope that as we're talking about, healthcare, which is, they'll be talking about another thing on the media in the press in another week, another 2 weeks, right? I hope that we will realize that we're collectively being played with. If you live in the United States, you're being played like a puppet. You're like a marionette on a string. Everybody is, right? This person got shot. Do you see the resources and the effort that they're taking to find the person that shot this CEO? Don't you wish that they used that kind of effort when a regular person who isn't important to them gets shot and killed on the streets of New York, right? And so I just think it's very interesting because we're literally seeing in real time how white supremacy works and how it plays out in our society. But a lot of us aren't making a connection. We're making this just about the bad healthcare industry. And yes, it is about that, but it's so much bigger than that. And so I gotta go because I gotta get, on the road. But I really wanted to say that because it's really something I've been thinking about. It's really bothering me that I don't feel, as I see people's comments on social media and stuff, I don't see people making a connection, and we really got to make the connection. We really got to understand there's more going on here than just about somebody getting shot, and we need to widen the conversation about these things and not just focus on that one thing. So I hope that I did that in this video. I'm sure you all will have lots of comments, so I look forward to seeing what they are. This is Anne-Marie. As always, HR is not your enemy, but they're definitely not your friend, but I am, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.